Hi, I'm Keith, and this is my art channel. Thanks for being here. Today, I'm going to show you how I painted this watercolor, ink wash, and pencil drawing right now. Doing these voiceovers is always fun time. Okay, now on the canvas, and this is actually a mixed media paper, I am showing you the very beginnings of this. I found a picture on the internet of a T-Rex. It was a pretty cool picture. And I wanted to start off with a blank slate, so I'm using my reference and I'm just drawing this freehand. Now, if you're into art, you know that if you draw something freehand, that you are better than anybody else. And I'm joking here because it's like a badge of honor to freehand something. I've been freehanding my art for years and years and years. Now, I use a projector for some of my artwork, and I have no problem doing that because it makes it faster, it makes it easier, and it makes it more accurate. But this one here, I decided to freehand just because I didn't want to dig my projector out. And plus, I have to put stuff over the windows, make the room dark, and I don't have a special room for doing that. So right now, I am freehanding from a reference photo, which you've probably seen bits of it in this video, and I'm putting in my dark outlines. I use a 2B pencil. I also use an 8B as in boy pencil. The 8 is a very soft pencil, gives me nice thick dark lines. But it also tends to break easily, and I tend to push pretty hard, so I end up busting off my leads. So I keep like 5 of them sharpened in a little basket next to the off screen where you can't see them. So if I bust one, I just move on to the next one. So what I'm doing here is I'm sketching out my T-Rex, and right now I'm putting in my texture. The texture basically is just a bunch of little scales, which really adds to the picture. I think it just makes it much more dynamic. So this is a little bit of a tedious part here. I'm going through and I'm putting all these little scales on, and the part of art that I love is the part where I'm creating and I'm thinking in my head as I go along. What am I doing? I need to make this part cool. This part, I have to shade this part. I have to fill this part. This part has to have texture. I have to have thick outlines, and that's why I do art, because it's a fun activity. I don't sell anything. You know, my art basically is on my YouTube page nowadays. I started off as a kid, you know, being an artist, and I drew and I love my monsters. I do lots and lots of monsters. If you follow my page, you know that because that's all I do. I also do landscapes, but the landscapes are usually behind my monsters. Ink wash. Let's talk about ink wash. I talk about it a lot here on this page. And the reason why I do is because I think ink wash is very important and probably not taught. It should be taught because it's the easiest and fastest and the most coolest way to do your shading. You can shade with the pencil, and I do shade with the pencil, but when you put ink wash over the top of a pencil, it makes so much texture, and it looks so cool, especially when the ink wash dries. I'm a huge fan. I learned how to do this from reading Mad Magazine back when I was a kid, because one of the artists I followed used ink wash all the time, and it was so dynamic looking. Once you have your ink wash on, you can put on a glaze of a color over the top of it, and you don't have to shade because it's already been shaded. It's such a easy and cool looking way of doing it. And it's all based on comic book art. And if you notice my artwork, I do a lot of bold outlines, which is also indicative of comic book art. I'm not a huge comic book fan. I don't follow any comics, but whenever I get a chance to look at a comic, I look at the way it was drawn. And I think comic book art is some of the most dynamic and interesting art there is. I also love doing oils and acrylics, so don't get me wrong, I do lots and lots of different kinds of artwork. But I always come home to the comic book style. So right now on the page, I am doing some ink wash, and I'm trying to form some shadows and contour lines and try to make this look like it's 3D. And I start off with a simple ink wash, then I will go over it with a darker ink wash to give it 2 tones. Right now, I'm adding a little bit of color over the top of it. This video originally was going to stop before I got to the color, because I tend to sometimes overdo things, But this painting actually turned out pretty good, so I'm going to go the full length. And I'm adding some sort of burnt umber acrylic paint that I thinned down with water. So basically I turned thick acrylic paint into watercolors by just adding water to it and doing a glaze or an overlay. I'm not sure, there's different words for it. So I found the burnt umber, and usually I go green with my monsters, but I thought, this time I'm going to go with more of a brown burnt umber color. So, and I leave the white highlights. That's a watercolor technique. You've probably seen it done a million times in watercolor. If you want to have a highlight, you just don't paint it and leave that part blank. Even though later on in this painting, you'll notice I do add some white because I wanted to add some extra texture to it. So I'm basically filling in my burnt umber. I put a little bit of light shine in the eyeball to make it look like it's alive. And what am I doing here? I'm adding more and more color here and there, trying very hard not to overdo it, because sometimes I just do that. And here I am adding some white. It's not really white. It's like a really light gray highlight, just to add some more texture to it, just to give us a little more feelings, like you can reach out and touch it. So I'm getting towards the end here because I'm adding my highlights. And if you know anything about the highlights, it's what makes your picture pop. It's the end result. You start dark and you go to light, and so what makes your work look professional. So I'm adding more and more highlights, more scales. I'm adding more and more scales, more highlights, and this thing was actually turning out pretty good. I was very happy with it. I'm making this into one video instead of two, because I like the way the colors looked. I like the design. I like the overall look of it, and I'm very, very happy with the results. Now, in order to make those highlights pop, you kind of have to darken your background. And I didn't want to do a whole bunch of stuff here, so I took some green paint, acrylics, watered it down again, turned it into watercolor, and just put it around the edges so that my white highlights on the horns would stand out. If you follow my work, you know I do lots of horns, I like lots of spiky things, because I just love that look. You're never going to find my artwork in anybody's house, probably, because it's so strange and oddball. Even though this stuff is in my house, I love it. I love it. If you want to buy one of these, just let me know. Thank you.